Welcome back to A Moment in History. I'm 𝙎𝙬𝘎𝘾𝙎. Well, in our travels through history, let's look at one of the most important moments in the history of travel. In the 19th century, the world was in transition away from agriculture, which had driven society for thousands of years, and into the age of industry. The primary engine, and that's a pun intended for this push towards industry, was the railroad. Rail travel would revolutionize land transportation and greatly decrease the travel time over long distances of terrain. In the United States, one such railroad brought the country together at an opportune time when the nation was expanding its borders from Atlantic to Pacific. This railroad would connect the center of the continental U.S. to the Pacific Ocean, aptly named the Transcontinental Railroad. Now, Americans had been eyeing up the West ever since the beginning of the 19th century with the Lewis and Clark expedition. The westward expansion exploded in the 1840s and 50s with the discovery of gold in California, which laid the foundation for railroads to begin penetrating the far reaches. Construction began on this particularly massive rail line in 1862 during the American Civil War, originally led by tycoon Theodore Judah's Central Pacific Railroad Company and building west to east. But shortly thereafter, President Abraham Lincoln, with one eye to the far west while his main attention was on saving the country, created some healthy competition by allowing a rival company, the Union Pacific Railroad, to begin building the railroad from the other side in Missouri. With a set amount of money guaranteed to each company based on how many miles they completed, Lincoln had the incentive he needed for a swift completion of the railroad, as both companies fought to gain more mileage than their rival. Now, the building of the railroad was no small task, as both companies had to contend with the southwestern deserts, the Great Plains, and the traversion of the massive Rocky Mountains. Of course, this was the Wild West in the late 19th century, which brought with it the legendary markers of cowboy culture at this time: heists, prostitution, shootouts, duels, and general lawlessness. But finally, in 1869, U.S. President and former Civil War General Ulysses S. Grant decreed that funding would be withheld from the rival rail companies until they agreed to come to a meeting point. On May 10, 1869, a ceremonial golden spike was nailed into the final piece of the connecting Transcontinental Railroad, completing the project in 7 years' time. With the railroad complete and connected to rail systems in the east, the continental U.S. could now be traversed in less than a week, whereas before it would have taken months to cross the country in a covered wagon or on foot. Thanks so much for joining me once again for A Moment in History. If you enjoyed this video, let us know by commenting down below. And for more historical content, just hit subscribe. I'm 𝙎𝙬𝘎𝘾𝙎, and I'll see you next time on A Moment in History.